Today is Saturday, July 11th. This is my weekly stock market update. I'll be going over a few things that happened last week and a few key things that I'm looking at going into next week. So starting off, looking at the indexes, I'll pull up the charts later, but the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, they both look good. They both got support at the 50-day moving averages, which is what you want to see as a bullish investor. And I'll go over two key sectors which are driving the market and I believe need to hold their 50-day moving averages in order for the market to continue higher. So those key sectors are DRAM, which encapsulates a lot of the memory stocks, and SOXX, which encapsulates the semiconductors. So over the past couple of weeks, both of these ETFs have come down, corrected to their 50-day moving averages, and they both have bounced. Now, is this bounce for real? Are we going to bounce back into new high grounds? Or are we going to just hit our head and reverse down and go lower? We'll just have to find out. But to me, that is what is important looking into next week. And that's what you need to be watching. SOXX and DRAM. The fundamentals of the memory stocks and the semiconductors are outstanding. They're producing crazy earnings and sales. So from a fundamental perspective, as long as capital expenditures of these hyperscalers still increases, the semiconductors and the memory stocks should both move higher and their earnings should go higher, and this bull market should continue. But that is from a fundamental perspective. Obviously there's a macro perspective. Maybe this war makes the market sell off, but we'll just have to see. But from an earnings standpoint, these companies still look very good and they should lead the market higher. So starting off, looking at the S&P 500, we see it broke above this shorter term downtrend line. This looks great. I'd love to see it break into new highs above 760. Love to see this undercut and rally sort of holding the 50-day moving average. Looking at the Qs, they held the 50-day as well. I guess I'll look at Bitcoin, just go over that quickly. I don't really think Bitcoin's the best trade you can make here, but there is a daily bullish divergence on the RSI for Bitcoin. So maybe this is a short-term bottom. I don't know. I just think there's more money to be made elsewhere. Obviously, this 55-day declining is going to be resistance, but if it gets above there, it starts making new highs and higher lows, maybe Bitcoin can turn around. I guess I'll look at a couple of the Mag 7 names. My favorites out of the Mag 7 are Google, Apple, and Nvidia currently. Tesla's also doing okay, but it's just been very choppy and volatile. I look at the Mags because you don't necessarily need to see the Mags skyrocketing to be bullish, but you definitely don't want them all looking like Microsoft and then big downtrends, because their heavy sector weighting and index weighting can definitely drag the entire market down. One thing I forgot to mention is the overall volatility of the market has been increased since this date here, June 5th. As you can see, since April, we've trended nicely above this 10-day and the 21-day. Not much volatility going on here in this whole rally. And then you just have this one huge big down day. And this, look at the following days afterwards. A lot of gap ups, a lot of gap downs, just a lot of volatility. And the individual stocks in this market obviously are a lot more volatile than the indexes. So since June 5th, it's been pretty rough to be a swing trader. If you have tight stop losses, you probably got stopped out of a lot of trades. But yes, we're looking for this market to continue tightening up and break out to the upside. Maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe we just roll over. But it's just a key thing to note that since June 5th, the market has been very volatile. Okay, so I'll just get right into the SOXX and DRAM. As you can see, the charts do look pretty similar because it is sort of the same trade, not really, but they're both market leaders and they both came down to the 50-day. One thing to note, this is the first touch of the 50-day since April, since this huge expansion. So this could be a great opportunity to buy off the 50-day, and I guess only time will tell. But one thing I didn't like is we gapped up and we rejected the 22 and the 10, or the 20 and the 10. So I love that we held the 50-day, but I didn't like this rejection of the 10 and the 20. We got sort of the same look on DRAM as well. But mainly, for the overall health of the market, you want to see these key leading sectors hold this 50-day moving average and continue to make new higher highs. A couple stocks in the SOXX that I do like are AMD and Dell. I believe they're holding up the best. I also like ARM and Max Linear. These are the stocks that I'm going to be focusing on. I'm just giving you, a couple stocks maybe you can keep an eye on. But a key thing to note about ARM and Max Linear are they both very volatile stocks. I believe Max Linear has a 21-day ATR percentage of about 12.5. So on any given day, this stock can move up or down 12%, which is, normal for the stock, but that's a huge move. But I do like how it made this huge run up, and it's held relatively, it's held most of this move, and it did hold the 50-day. If the stocks continue to go higher, this thing could go to the moon, but it also could go to zero. So just something to keep an eye on. Maybe right here's a good, risk reward opportunity, because I think if the stocks go higher, this thing's, it can be up 20% in a day, just like it was up 18% on this day here. So just something to keep an eye on. DRAM, very similar to the SOXX, came down to the 50, got rejected. Once again, I already said that at the 12 and the 22. My favorite stock within the memory sector is probably SanDisk, because it did close above the 12 and the 22. That's some nice relative strength to look at. But Micron, Seagate, Western Digital, EWY, that's the South Korea ETF. I wouldn't really play this one, but I think if you wanted to play either one of these stocks, SanDisk, Micron, STX, if memory goes higher, these stocks are likely going to go higher as well. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick SanDisk. Looking at some of the SOXX names, I already mentioned I liked AMD, Dell, ARM, and Max Linear. But out of the semiconductor equipment manufacturers, I also really like ASML and Applied Materials. So those are some more stocks to look at within those sectors. Next, looking at a couple of the cybersecurity names. Similar to how SOXX encapsulates the semiconductors, the ticker symbol CIBR encapsulates a lot of the cybersecurity names. This is also into new highs. I like CIBR, but I do believe I want to be focused in the SOXX and DRAM names if they hold. I just think there's more opportunity there. That's what I like to trade, and whatever. Looking into the cybersecurity ETF, my favorite stocks are Palo Alto and CrowdStrike. I also like Fortinet and Twilio, and also Net, Cloudflare. Those are just a few stocks out of the cybersecurity ETF to look at. And quantum names, although I do believe quantum is the future, these are struggling. They had a nice run up and then they all got rejected. Yeah, just I'm keeping an eye on them because it's, they can go on crazy runs like they did in September 25, September to October, went from 16 to 40. So, these are capable of some pretty crazy moves. So I would just keep an eye on them. Another thing to note is the three major banks, JP Morgan, Bank of America, and Citigroup all look great. This is good. You want to see the financials doing well in a bull market. Another bank that I'm keeping my eye on is Robinhood. Would love to see, I don't know, maybe I'll be a buyer if it comes back down to this 22 and it sort of retests this area. Maybe I'll be a buyer there. But Robinhood's definitely one that I want to keep my eye on. The fiber optics, they've really just been, they were great leaders over the past year, but they've really fallen off over the past couple of weeks. I guess another interesting thing to look at is SpaceX. One thing I like to do with IPOs is put an anchored VWAP, volume weighted average price, on the IPO day. And as you can see, we traded above it for 2-3 days, and then as soon as we broke this IPO VWAP, we haven't been able to get back above it. So if you wanted to be a buyer of SpaceX, I would look for it to close above this IPO VWAP. If you don't know what that is, you can just look it up. You can read Brian Shannon's book on it. I love the anchored VWAP. It's a great tool. So yeah, that's sort of all I wanted to look at. So just an overview. I want to see SOXX and DRAM hold their 55. And if they do, I'm bullish on the market. Although it is very volatile, if the semiconductors and the memory names can get back into new highs, this market's going to be rocking. But if we break below these recent lows, the market could be in trouble. So just keep an eye on the semiconductors and the memory names and watch a couple of those stocks I mentioned. And yeah, that's it.